everybody, Ro Panuganti here, and the song you just heard, I did not mix it. And it was made with 100% free plugins. Now let's take both of those two things and quickly talk about it. Mixing is one of the most important processes in creating music. It's the blending of different instruments and using special effects in very certain orders to get a nice, pleasing sound, kind of like what we have in our head. It makes mixes punchy, it makes them exciting, level, and listenable on different devices. And free plugins, now we have to use a lot of different plugins, and musicians go through a lot of trial and error with different, instruments and virtual instruments and EQs and compressors. And, a lot of these words may not even make sense to you right now as you're listening to this, but what was special about this project is I didn't have to lift a finger, and I certainly did not have to go and try a bunch of plugins, spend a bunch of money on, different drum kits and guitar amp sims and all these different products. I just recorded my instrument and the magic happened. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ro Panuganti, and I've been a musician for a real long time, and I've been making music on this channel for over 12 years. And for the most part, I've been using Reaper. It's my digital audio workstation of choice, and it's got a plethora of great features and customization. But more important than anything is I've been using ReaperTips. My buddy Alejandro founded a website and an account on Instagram called ReaperTips, where he could provide really great advice, tutorials, quick guides, and customization tips, and even an ebook on how to use Reaper comfortably and quickly make it the digital audio workstation that you can make your best music with. In addition to all these great features of ReaperTips.com, today I wanted to talk about ReaperTips' Modern Metal template. In this video, I want to walk you through some of the cool things about this template, how I use it, how I can use it for VGM and customize it to my taste, and of course why I think it would be a great asset to any of you music makers out there who are using Reaper. Before I get into my specific take on the template, you can go to ReaperTips.com and check it out. I'm going to put everything in the description below. I want to show you how I made that demo real quick. Now you can pause and you can skip around the chapters in this video, and if you're not sure how to install anything, check out ReaperTips.com and the PDF that comes with the template. There's a fantastic amount of questions answered and specifics on why the template is set up the way it is, some of the things under the hood like the side chaining going on, and how you can slowly but carefully tweak it until it's the perfect template for you to write your music. So now we're looking at the templates, and the first thing you're going to notice, of course, is that you have two options. There's the regular one and the low CPU version. So choose the one that works with your computer best and give them both a try. They both sound great, and one of them is just using slightly less CPU. It's in the name. Now, another thing you're going to have to choose is between the demo project or your template. I recommend saving a copy of both of these just for convenience, and save them in your favorite directory. Now, one of the cool things about the demo project is it features a bunch of little songs and instrumentals that can show really what the template does out the box and how diverse you can make your music. Now, there's one song from me, there's some that use more of the ambient sound and the kind of vibey metal, and then there's some that are just, riffs and tight, bright guitar sounds. And I think you should check them out and definitely use that as a basis, maybe even as a source of inspiration. Now, once you've opened your template and maybe you've saved a copy of it, go ahead and take a look at all the things that are there, but you can also pull up this fantastic guide. Now, Alejandro from ReaperTips has put together a great guide on how to install everything and how to get it pretty much working. And if you have any trouble, of course, you can reach out to ReaperTips about that. The most important thing, of course, is that there's a little bit of setup. Now, I already said that you can check out the setup on ReaperTips because there's going to be fantastic resources there. But just to put it quickly, there's a bass distortion kind of plugin, there's a special delay that's getting used, there's ML Amped Roots, which is the amp of choice that's free, and then of course there's the SSD Sampler 5, which is the Steven Slate drums that are being used in the template. There's also a really cool multi-band compressor called Fire that is also really integral to install, but they all took me hardly 10 minutes to get together, and then all you have to do is double check that your Reaper has all of its VST directory stuff set up. Next thing, of course, you'll do is install the ReaPack plugins. There's some really great and, of course, free stuff in there, so I definitely recommend you check it out. Let's take a look at the actual song and how I manipulated the template to work for me. Now, there's only a few things that are different about my song project and what you're going to see. So it's going to be hopefully a perfect translation between your template blank and what a song could look like. Going from top to bottom, ReaperTips' template basically has all of the essentials to make a great metal song. You have your drums, bass, different kinds of guitar layers, and of course lead guitar as well. And there's even some optional tracks in case you want to diversify your tracks or change up how your song is written even more. That said, I think that especially my video game music friends who are doing a lot of rock and metal versions of game music, as well as just people who are writing songs, will find something fantastic out of this Reaper template, especially if you're already comfortable with the DAW just a little bit. Now, what's special about each one of these tracks? Now, when you go recording, I'm not a drummer, so having MIDI drums is fantastic. And if you double click, you can take a look at the interface and it's really, really comfortable. You have all of the tracks that are already here labeled for snare articulations like snare, rim shots, and kick drums, and so on. You also have hi-hats, cymbals, toms, and all these different variations means that you probably already wrote a song that would translate perfectly into this. Now, one of the cool things that is listed in the PDF, of course, in case you're curious, is how some of the hits work. So if I have light hits on the snare, it's already sounding, I say light and it's already like pretty powerful, but everything already sounds pretty great out the box, as I've always said. And that means that when I click in different parts, it feels like I'm making the final song already, and I don't have to feel like my thing sounds poo-poo. Now, if you hit really, really hard on the snare, you can hear that there's extra snare layers on top of it, giving this big, reverby, explosive, dramatic moment of a hit. And that's something that's really important to metalcore music and a lot of modern music. So all of this stuff is being triggered inside and under the hood. You don't have to worry about it if you're not curious. It already sounds great. Now you have things like bass. There's two kinds of bass tracks. The bass crunch, which is pretty great on its own. Let's take a listen. And you can hear that it's compressed, it's not carved in any weird way, it's full, and it helps get a lot of the low end sound. Now there's a bass aggro that does kind of the opposite. It fills out the brighter parts and makes the bass sound kind of like it's gluing itself to the rhythm guitars, and it's very bright. But I recommend, of course, recording both of them in tandem if you want to get like this really crazy full sound. And then you can just record with the crunch if you want it. You can also right-click your track and hit automatic record arm when track selected. So while you're working on your project, you can just click a track and go ahead and start playing. Or you can click there. And if you have it disabled, it won't do that. Now, there's a lot of different guitar layers, and in modern metal, we usually have a lot of variety of different kinds of tones. One of them, of course, being your rhythm guitars. Now, this guitar distorted rhythm left and right here, those are the ones where I was playing on the 8-string in the beginning, and you get this really nice full sound from the ML amped roots, and there's also a specific cabinet that's been chosen to pair with this amp, and it just sounds really full. Check it out. So it's saturated, it's loud, and I recorded this all with my Abasi, and you can see in the DI, I'm not cranking the gain, I'm not putting quiet gain, it's somewhere in the middle, and it doesn't have to be precise. It sounds great, and it's already being processed really nicely. There's a mix of EQ and even a sidechain, so if you're playing lead guitars and melodies, it'll bring the rhythm guitar down automatically for you, and then it'll bring it right back up when the lead guitars go away, and it's done in such a way that the mix sounds really, really organic. Now, in addition to the heavy rhythm guitars, a lot of music has layers. So I have some octaves going on, especially during the chorus, and those are on the guitar crunch tracks. There's a left and a right, just like a rhythm guitar's left and right, and it's already set up for you so that they have kind of like this nice blend, and they go together and make something really harmonically pretty. So check these out. And it's really nice because that chorus ends up getting like this really rich sound. So having 4 different kinds of rhythm guitars really benefits this template. Now, of course, many of you know me as a lead guitar player, so I have to have some solos in here. And what's cool is you have two different options with different routing to different kinds of reverbs. So this one has a supermassive, which is a Valhalla free reverb. And when you play it, it just sings. Check this out. And again, without having to add a lot of layers, it sounded like this as I played it. So I already knew it was going to sound big and exciting. That's one of the best parts about this template, pretty much. You're playing into what could be on the radio, and it's already processed, and it's processed in such a way that it already comes out quite clean. Now, many of you also know that I love these like ambient, clean guitar layers that are just full of reverb, but often they take a lot of different effects stacked on top of each other, and that means more CPU. It also means I probably won't be able to quickly get the idea out, but with the template, you're able to add these really easily. So check this out, and look at that gigantic stack of effects. It's really great because this is like a style thing that I use a lot, and maybe not everyone's going to. So if you don't use it, again, you can hit mute and all of a sudden your CPU just gets that much quicker and you can add more tracks that you do want. Now, altogether, that's pretty much what the bulk of the song is, but ReaperTips has included a lot of optional tracks in case your music takes a different turn. So there's clean guitars, which of course play more simple and dry, undistorted tones. Just a little bit of light reverb, a little bit of thumping going on. And what's kind of nice is that you just have the option, and if you don't use it, you can get rid of it in your song. You can even get rid of it in your version of this template. Now, for example, I did not use the lo-fi crunch, so I left it on mute, and it doesn't bother me at all because I didn't mix the song. But something I did use is this really cool guitar tremolo effect. It ends up building up on itself. So it starts with a dry signal going into the Valhalla Supermassive, which already repeats the dry guitar signal and builds up on itself. Then it gets fed into an amp and then another layer. So what happens is the effect just builds up over and over and over the song, and you can definitely hear it if I play it on its own. So check this out. And it keeps going. It's really cool. So I definitely like having that in the background of a lot of songs, and sometimes it's more prominent. Lastly, I used this synth pad that was already built in, and it's using, again, free plugins, this pad synth that I've actually never heard of. But it's so simple. It's playing really nice chords underneath my guitars and filling out kind of like the cracks that the instrument leaves. So when you hear it, it sounds like an 80s, like stacked, I guess, sawtoothy-ish sound. As a result of having all these things right at my fingertips, I could even just pull out my MIDI keyboard and punch things in if I wanted to. That's pretty much, again, the benefit of having a template that you trust. You can just work into it and focus on songwriting, on cover writing, on creative music making and practicing performance. I can use this to test out a new guitar tone. And that's also one of the most important parts, of course, is this is going to be reliable for YouTube videos, for streaming, for exporting. And that is thanks to having a really great mastering chain inside of your project. Now, traditional mastering, of course, requires sending your mix to a separate house, and they're going to treat it completely differently than if you just, go into Reaper and add a few plugins. Yet, we're hitting the right loudness units, we're getting the right kind of compression and brightness in the mix. And I think that's one of the best parts, again, about having a template like this for projects. If you take a look at some of the things in the master chain, we have volume adjustments, stereo enhancing to make the wideness factor of the song work. You have different EQs that are all brightening the right areas or subtracting certain parts that are traditionally not going to work, avoid buildup. And there's also little comments on the template to explain what they're doing. Like this one says bass punch and sub bass. It just all kind of works together. Then of course we have things like a compressor on top that starts to even out your sound and get that full radio ready, punchy, beautiful metal mix that we're all after. Things like saturation and of course an important limiter and clipper to get it just to where you could put it out on YouTube, put it on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever exists, and it works and it sounds full. That's the kind of trust that I was really, really surprised to hear. A lot of people sell templates for a lot of money and they require you to buy a bunch of things and you still end up tweaking them. I set myself as a challenge, do not tweak this template, see how it sounds and how comfortable it makes me. And I've written a little song almost every day since I got the first version of this template, so it's really, really exciting to have. Now, many artists watching this for fun or just, the idea of a Reaper songwriting template is so exciting, but you're not sure if it's going to be right for you yet. Maybe you don't make exactly metal, you make synth rock. Maybe you want to introduce brass or strings. Maybe you're working on a JRPG theme and you're a composer and you want guitars to sound great and drums to sound great, but you also need to incorporate it into your workflow. Why should you get this template? You can customize this comfortably while still maintaining the most important parts that I frankly feel are going to be the worst if you're not experienced with mixing, including me. So what do we do if we want this template to work for a different style? Let's start with what I would do personally. So I have an Axe FX3. It's my favorite source of tones and it just sounds great, especially for lead guitars. So if I wanted to record my own part, I could just change the VST to one I prefer, or I can create a new track underneath guitar leads, and then I can just name it Axe FX3 Lead 1. I can change the corresponding leads, to the input that I need, and just record into the same plugin chain. Now, if you really, really are attached to the way you've set it up, go to File, Project Templates, Save Project as a Template, and then next time you open that project file, you're gonna have your version of the ReaperTips songwriting with, the tweaks that you need, but you also get to keep all these really cool effects chains that have been painfully routed and tested so that they work. One of the other cool things you can do, of course, is you could make your own new track and name it something like Vocal Bus, if I could spell. That way we could sing on top of this template and then we would still get all the mastering benefits. Of course, you might want to tweak some things and move it around, but that's what a template is. It's not the final project. It's the thing that allows you to even get started, to get you really close. But this template is different. It gets you to the end. So you really just have to tweak what you need and go. Write your songs. To summarize again, this song was really, really easy for me to write, which is usually the hardest part. I want things to sound really good. I don't want to spend tons and tons of money when I know that the bottom line is I just need this skill that is a completely different speciality. And I definitely don't want to have to spend more time tweaking a mix than I do writing the song and enjoying it and playing guitar, which is the thing I'm trying to do most. So with all the really cool resources on ReaperTips.com, I already stress that you check it out if you're a Reaper user for any kind of music, any kind of genre, but especially after doing this demo, playing with at least 3 or 4 songs that I've gotten to write with this template. The songwriting template for modern metal is just perfect for me. It lets me play guitar, it lets me have a great mix out the box, I don't have to spend any additional money, and I really don't spend any time tweaking volume knobs or worrying about EQ or side chaining. It just sounds great. And that's all a template really ever needed to be for me. It sounds great and lets me do what I want to do. I think it's going to let you do what you want to do. And if you're a modern metal songwriter or just interested in getting great rock metal sounds out of Reaper, this is a no-brainer. If you want it, check it out on ReaperTips.com. Go in my description and there'll be a special link for it as well. I highly recommend you check it out. And if you make something, tag me and tag at ReaperTips on Instagram. And I definitely want to see what you come up with and how this template can help you focus on making music, playing the instrument you love, and less about worrying what volume knobs and panning and compression and junk you need to tweak to get the right mix. Have a great one, enjoy songwriting, and I'll see you next time.